Jersey's Rat Radio 95.9, the Rockin Robyn for Rat TV at a sold-out Slash show here at the Starland Ballroom with the star of the show. Nice to see you, Slash. Thanks for hanging with the Rat. You know, we saw you guys last year on the road with Aerosmith.
Right.
And those guys are heroes to you. I mean, they influenced you big time. Does it seem surreal to be on the same stage with heroes?
Well, I mean, I remember the first time we toured with them back in Guns N' Roses days in the early 80s, and that was like the tour that we were on that we actually broke, like became pretty, well known at that point. And it was very surreal because I didn't know them up until then. I'd never really met them or anything like that. So it was very surreal. But on this particular tour, this last one, last summer, we've been friends all this time. I've been friends with them since the 80s. And so it was more than surreal. It was just nice to be on a tour that was a like-minded rock and roll lineup. And it was there was a lot of camaraderie, and it was very warm and sort of family-like, and it was really, really cool. And this is the first time I'd ever really spent any time with those guys for myself on tour sober. So I really got to go after our show and go check them out. And I've said this a few times, but to quote myself, I just saw them in a different light. It's just, I always thought they were a great rock and roll band, but to really see them, it was...
the human side of it.
Yeah. And then as players, just the rhythm of it, and also it was great for us because we're, we're a very stripped down, straight ahead rock and roll band. There's not a lot of that still going on. I mean, there is some, but not like there used to be. And so it was nice to be playing with a band that was basically had the same components, and just see how great they were. I think it gave us a little boost of confidence doing what it is that we do.
You've never written with Joe Perry or Steven Tyler, have you?
Well, I've jammed with them a lot. I don't think I've ever written a song with Joe. But with Steven, I think we dicked around on something for a minute, yeah.
So, but it never saw the light of day?
No, but it was pretty cool.
Is that something?
So we'll see what happens when it was.
In the early 80s when Aerosmith, they were having some troubled times. Joe had to sell a guitar he sold his 58 Sunburst Les Paul. It was a 59. And somehow you wound up with it down the line. How did that happen?
We had just finished the Aerosmith tour. We were touring in Japan, and I got a phone call. This is before like emails and all that shit. I got a phone call from the office in LA saying that there's somebody selling a guitar that I might be interested in, and the description was it's a 59 tobacco Les Paul, and it was owned by Joe Perry and I think Dwayne Allman's name was mentioned, and I was like, wait, I know that guitar. You have to send me pictures, right? So we finished our shows in Japan and flew back to LA, and in my mailbox in my apartment was this envelope, and I opened it up, and I know every scratch, every nick on that guitar, because that was my favorite Les Paul when I was a kid. It wasn't like all bright orange. It was like this really sort of nasty, like yellow-brown kind of color. It was really dark and cool looking. And it had all these scratches on it that I'm familiar with, and so when I got the Polaroids, it was that fucking guitar, which they talk about surreal. That was very surreal. And anyway, so I bought it with all the money I had at the time, which was $8,000. And then early on, right then and there, I offered it back to Joe, and he didn't have the money at the time. So I held on to it. Then when Joe did have money, he wanted it back. I didn't want to give it up, and I didn't really use that guitar. It didn't feel. There's something about it that I loved having it, but it didn't feel like my guitar. I used it for the November Rain video. There's some different shoots and stuff that it was very coveted kind of guitar to me. But eventually down the line, I ended up giving it back to him for his birthday in like 2007
or something like that.
No. I think it was. Was it? No, it was earlier than that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I thought
it was like 2003, 2004.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 2002, I don't know. But anyway, and he was really happy to have it back, and it made me feel really good to see him with it, And so even though it put a hole in my cool guitar collection, it was great that he got it back. It really meant something to him, and something he said to me that really stuck with me was like, man, I really love that guitar. I mean, it's the only thing that reminds me of that time. And that really stuck, and I didn't give it back to him that minute, but it stuck with me for years, and eventually I think that was really the catalyst.
And it's good karma.
And it's good karma. Now we have some Gibson replicas of that guitar, Murphy aged VOS. They look exactly the same with all the same scratches and all that shit. So I've got a couple of those.
How many guitars do you own?
It's sort of hard to say exactly without the spreadsheet in front of me, but I think it's around 200. Pretty much the same collection I always had. In the 90s, I bought a lot of guitars, and in the millennium, I haven't really bought any. Maybe one or two here and there. But because I do a lot of work with Gibson and I do a lot of Slash models, I have a certain amount that I get from them that I use, and so it's accumulated over the last 10 years.
Let's shine the spotlight on something that is near and dear to your heart, saving elephants. People are, you have poachers out there, the ivory poachers, and you partnered up with an organization, the IFAW,
International Fund for
Animal Welfare.
Yeah.
You experienced this firsthand on a trip to South Africa with Miles, is that right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a huge animal activist, any animals, but when Miles and I went to Africa to go play, I was very familiar with what's happening with the ivory trade, and just to sort of talk to people who are on the front lines of combating that in person in Africa, and to be out in the bush and seeing elephant herds and in the wild and all that kind of stuff, it really brought a lot home. And for Miles, it was his first time ever really meeting an elephant in person, face to face, and so he ended up writing some pretty poignant lyrics of basically a song that's a story of an elephant. It's a story from an elephant's point of view, living through this sort of crazy fucking situation that they're faced with, and then I had some music that was actually, funnily enough, I had no idea he had these lyrics, but I had this one song called Elephantosaurus. It was just a work title, and so we got together and he put those words to that music, and it became Beneath the Savage Sun,
which is on your current record,
which is on World on Fire. And so what happened was, after the record was done and all that, because are you going to do a music video, or are you going to? And I've just gotten really past your sort of standard music video sort of concept kind of things, and I just don't like to do them. And I thought, well, if I was going to do a video, let's do one for a song that's not even a single, but let's do one, an expose on what's happening to the elephants. Not have the band in it or any of that shit, just focus on the elephants.
More like education.
Yeah, and so I called IFAW, who I've worked with before, and I told them the idea, and they were really excited to do it and help me get all this footage together of what's really happening to elephants currently, and so
people watching this right now on Rat TV, how do they get in touch with IFAW?
Well, www.ifaw.org is how you can reach them directly, and you can make donations, you can get information, you can find out exactly everything you need to know about what they're doing to protect elephants. And then to see the video, you can go to my website, which is slashonline.com.
You got that?
Yeah.
IFAW/. You have a video live DVD coming out next month, June. Recorded, was it Live at the Roxy?
Live at the Roxy. Let's see, we right at the end of that Aerosmith tour, when the album came out in September, we went and did 4 shows in clubs. One in New York at Sancho's Party House, which I'd never been to before. But
I've been there before.
We had a really great gig there, tiny little place. And then we did 3 shows in Los Angeles, which were at the clubs that I basically started out in. The Troubadour, the Whiskey, and the Roxy. And we wanted to sort of commemorate the new album and all that kind of shit. But we wanted to immortalize one of these shows and release it somehow. So we filmed and recorded the Roxy show, and it was just to sort of capture that kind of energy and the spirit of the night and so on. So,
you're a live guy. I mean, that's the one thing. If you could just play live, you would. But there's reasons to do studio records, and and you get to go out and play everything live for your audience.
I think studio records, as much as I like writing songs and recording, it's really always been a vehicle to be able to take those songs and do them in front of a live audience, and also there's a certain energy that goes with performing, these songs live. I mean, you do the best you can in the studio, but there's a thing that comes across when you're delivering it live that every night's different. It's got a certain spontaneity to it, and there's a certain aggression to it, or maybe if it's blues or something, it's got a certain sort of feel that is on the record, but you embellish that when you're doing it live.
Yeah. Speaking of improvising, when you're headlining, do you always stick to your set list, or do you just occasionally go off and?
Well, I mean, I make a set list. Sometimes we call audibles, Sometimes we do it for a cover song, or we might just be in it. It's that sort of like very spontaneous energy thing that happens. But usually I stick to the set list that we come up with that day.
Okay.
And it changes, at least by 1 or 2 songs every night.
Do you do any covers at all?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're not going to tell us what you're doing tonight here at the Starland?
I don't think we're doing any covers tonight.
Oh, okay.
It's just sort of one of those things. We do it sometimes, but we play such a long set of our own that it's usually not till the end of the night that we decide or not to, to do a cover.
You've spoken a lot about your family and how artistic they are, your mother and your father. I don't think you've ever spoken about your brother. Ash?
Yeah, Ash is...
He's an artist as well.
Yeah, Ash is awesome. Let's see. Well, he's more... he's closer to what my dad... Like, I ended up being a musician, which nobody in my family are really musicians, but we all love music, so I was brought up around music, and I sort of think that's how it happened. But with Ash, he sort of stuck... We both draw. That's what we were sort of God-given, we were born with, kind of thing. And he's really stuck to it, but he's a lot like my dad. He's more of a graphic artist, photographer.
Your father was he designed album covers.
He was a graphic artist and a photographer as well. Yeah. And so my brother did my first Snake Pit record. I worked with him. He did the big Snake S, and he also did my second Snake Pit record. Now that I think about it, and he just does a lot of really, really cool shit. I think he did do the first sort of Slash on my first solo record, which was this sort of cool blue sort of thing. And he's in Japan now. He's doing some jewelry designs, and he's doing some amazing photography out there.
Doesn't he have a clothing line as well?
That was what he was most famous for. In the 90s, he had this company called Con Art, which was basically urban apparel, but like rap stuff, but the hardcore shit back when, like the really cool rap stuff was around. He had this company, they made t-shirts and caps, and it was all very sort of hardcore and controversial, and people loved it. But he had an issue with some Japanese guys came along and ripped off the the license from him, and so.
Are you tight with him?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I talk to him all the time.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. We're going to check out Slash tonight, live on stage, a sold-out show here at the Starland Ballroom. Don't forget to pick up the live DVD next month, live at the Roxy. That's what they're right? Yeah. Live at the Roxy on the streets.
June 12th or
16th, I think it is. June 16th. And we will see you sometime soon. Rockin Robyn and Slash here on Rat TV.